If there were 10 commandments of skincare, I feel like commandment number 1, probably chiseled in stone right at the very top, would just be thou shalt
Oh,
moisturize.
absolutely. I mean, it is the golden rule. It's basically the dogma of the entire industry at this point.
It's completely non-negotiable, right? Like if you have dry skin,
Yeah,
you moisturize.
right.
If you have oily skin, you're actually told you need to moisturize even more to balance out the oil production.
Hmm.
And if you have acne, well, you need to moisturize to repair the barrier so the acne can heal.
Yeah.
We've just been trained to believe that the answer to literally any skin problem is to just slather on a rich, thick cream and, go to bed looking like a glazed donut.
Oh, yeah, the glazed donut trend. We have all been there. It's currently the visual standard of health, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you aren't completely shiny, you just aren't trying hard enough.
Exactly. But, and this is exactly why I love doing these deep dives, we have a stack of research here today. Specifically, we're looking at some dermatological guidance on barrier health from the team over at Skin Bliss.
Right, the skin bliss materials.
Yeah, and it suggests we might actually have this completely backward. They're proposing something that sounds almost illegal to say in the beauty world.
It really does.
They ask, what if moisturize more is actually the problem?
It is a super provocative question.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes against the grain of a, $500 billion industry?
Easily.
But when you dig into the actual physiology of the skin, specifically how the skin barrier functions under stress, you realize that for a huge chunk of the population, that heavy night cream isn't a savior at all. It actually acts more like a saboteur.
And that is our mission for today. We are investigating a phenomenon the research calls the occlusive trap. We're going to find out if you, and let's be real, I'm definitely including myself here, if we're accidentally destroying our skin barriers by trying to save them.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about trapped heat, bacterial overgrowth, and why your expensive serums might just be suffocating under that thick layer of luxury cream.
Well, it's a lot less luxury and a lot more biological blockage.
Biological blockage. Wow. Okay, well, let's get into the mechanics of that blockage. Because to understand the trap, I guess we first have to understand the tool.
Exactly.
When we talk about these rich, heavy moisturizers, the ones that come in those heavy glass jars that just feel so satisfying to open, what are we actually putting on our faces?
Usually we are dealing with a class of ingredients called occlusives. And the word itself actually comes from the Latin occludere, which means to shut up or to close.
Oh, to close. Okay.
Yeah. So commonly, these are things like petroleum, which is just classic petroleum jelly mineral oil, heavy vegetable butters like your shea or cocoa butter, and certain dense waxes or lanolin.
And the logic, historically anyway, is that these ingredients are there to create a seal.
Correct. They form a hydrophobic film over the epidermis. Think of it kind of like putting cling film over a bowl of leftovers.
Right.
The whole goal is to stop transepidermal water loss, or TEWL. You are physically blocking the water from evaporating out of your skin.
Which, that sounds like a good thing. I don't want my water evaporating. I want to be plump and juicy and hydrated. So where exactly is the trap in that?
The trap is that the seal is entirely indiscriminate. When you put that layer of cling film on your face, you aren't just trapping water molecules. You're trapping literally everything.
Everything.
You're sealing in sebum, your natural oils. You're sealing in dead skin cells that are trying to shed. You are sealing in bacteria. And perhaps most critically, and honestly the least discussed, you are sealing in heat.
Heat. See, that's the variable I never even consider. When I look at a thick jar of cream, I just think hydration. I definitely don't think insulation.
But physically, that is exactly what an occlusive layer is. It is an insulator. You have to remember the skin is an organ that needs to thermoregulate. It breathes, in a sense.
Right.
So when you apply a heavy layer of petroleum or thick butter, you are essentially putting a heavy winter-down jacket on your face.
Which I guess is fine if you're, skiing in the Alps.
Exactly. If you are in a sub-zero environment, you absolutely want that insulation. But let's say you have rosacea, or you're just prone to flushing, or you have naturally oily reactive skin. You are basically creating a greenhouse effect on the surface of your face.
A greenhouse effect, so the literal temperature underneath that cream is actually rising.
Yes. And for rosacea specifically, heat is the ultimate enemy. Heat causes vasodilation, which means the blood vessels expand.
Oh, wow.
So picture this. You apply a really thick, supposedly soothing cream because your face is red and irritated. But because that cream is so occlusive, it traps your own body heat against the skin.
Oh, no.
The skin gets hotter, the blood vessels expand even further, and the redness just gets worse.
That is incredibly ironic. You're trying to put out the fire, but you've essentially just thrown a heavy wool blanket over it.
And the fire just burns hotter under the blanket. You're literally trapping the inflammation inside.
Okay, what about the bacteria aspect? You mentioned we're sealing that in too.
Yeah. This is where it gets really messy for our acne-prone listeners. There is a specific bacterium involved in acne called Cutibacterium acnes, and it is anaerobic.
Anaerobic meaning it hates oxygen.
Exactly. It thrives in oxygen-deprived environments.
Yeah.
So when you slather a heavy occlusive over your pores, you are cutting off the oxygen supply while simultaneously trapping heat and moisture.
Yikes.
You are literally building the perfect 5-star luxury resort for acne bacteria.
You're basically hosting a massive party for the pimples.
Yeah. And you're even providing the catering with all that trapped sebum.
Because the oil is food.
Right. Remember, sebum is food for bacteria. If you seal the oil in with a heavy cream, the bacteria have an absolute feast. Plus, they have that warm, dark environment they love to reproduce in.
Okay, I want to push back on this for just a second because I know there are people listening right now who are thinking, okay, but if I stop using the cream, my skin feels so incredibly dry. Like, I need the hydration.
I hear that all the time.
We use these words interchangeably, right? Moisture, hydration, oil. Are we just confusing our terms here?
Yes, that is the single biggest point of confusion in all of skincare consumerism. We absolutely have to separate the concept of hydration from occlusion. They are not the same thing.
Okay, walk us through the difference.
Hydration refers specifically to the water content of the skin cells. Think of the difference between a grape and a raisin.
Right, the water.
Exactly. The difference is just water. You increase hydration with humectants. Those are ingredients that physically grab water and hold on to it. Occlusion, on the other hand, is just oil or wax or silicone. It doesn't add a single drop of water to your skin.
It just sits there.
It just sits on top to prevent loss.
So if my skin is totally dehydrated, if I'm currently a raisin and I put pure shea butter on top...
Then you are just a greasy raisin.
A greasy raisin. Wow, that is a horrifying image. Thank you so much for that.
But it's completely accurate. You haven't added any water. You've literally just laminated the dryness.
Laminated the dryness.
And this is exactly why people get stuck in this vicious cycle. They feel dry, so they apply more heavy cream. But the cream isn't actually hydrating them. It's just suffocating them.
Yeah.
And maybe even causing breakouts.
Right.
So then what do? They use harsh acne treatments, which dry them out even more. So then they use even more heavy cream.
It's the occlusive trap. We've found it.
We've found it. It's a feedback loop that creates its own set of problems.
Okay, so how do you know if you are currently stuck in the trap? Because, you know, skin is fickle. Sometimes I break out because I ate way too much cheese or because I'm stressed out or the moon is in retrograde or whatever.
Right, there are so many variables.
So how does a listener distinguish between just having a bad skin day and knowing, oh, my moisturizer is actively sabotaging me?
The source material from Skin Bliss is actually incredibly helpful here. They outline 3 very specific diagnostic warning signs. These aren't just vague feelings. They are physical, observable indicators that your product is just too heavy for your barrier.
All right, let's run the diagnostics. What is warning sign number 1?
Sign number 1 is location-specific breakouts. This one requires you to be a bit of a detective with your own face.
Okay.
You have to ask yourself, are you getting new spots specifically in the areas where you apply your moisturizer the most heavily?
Usually we just slather it everywhere, don't we? Or are people a lot more strategic than I am?
Well, think about combination skin. You might have an oily T-zone like your forehead and your nose, but really dry cheeks.
Oh, right.
If you take a heavy cream that's perfectly suited for those dry cheeks and you just smear it all across your oily forehead, and then suddenly your forehead breaks out in all these tiny, small whiteheads.
That's not hormones.
No.
No, that's mechanics.
That's a physical blockage.
Exactly. Or think about people who spot treat dry patches. If you put a heavy balm on a flaky spot right near your chin, and then 3 days later that exact same spot has a giant pimple, that is the occlusive trap in action.
Because the product sealed the flaky skin down.
The product did its job of sealing, yeah, but it completely sealed the pore shut in the process. Okay, so that's the visual check. What about a sensory check? What does the trap actually feel like?
This brings us to sign number 2, the suffocated feeling. And I really want to be precise about this sensation because it is so often misinterpreted.
Okay, I'm listening.
The source asks, does your skin feel tight or warm immediately after you apply your moisturizer?
See, tight is really tricky because if my skin feels tight, my immediate instinct is, oh, I'm dry, I need to add another layer.
Precisely. And that is the exact instinct we need to rewire here.
Mm,
Yes, bare, freshly stripped skin feels tight because the cells physically contract when they lack water.
right.
But, and this is the key distinction, if you have just applied a layer of cream and 5 minutes later your face feels tight or heavy or warm.
That is not dryness.
No, it's inflammation. It's micro-swelling.
Whoa!
Micro-swelling.
The tightness you feel in that moment is actually the skin struggling to thermoregulate. It's the trapped heat we discussed earlier. The source material is super explicit about this. Tightness or warmth after applying equals trapped heat, not hydration. So if your face feels like it's wearing a thick wool mask, that is not the product quote-unquote working.
Not at all. That is your skin suffocating.
I think a lot of us have felt that exact sensation and just assumed the product hadn't, sunk in yet. But you're saying it's never going to sink in. It's just sitting there cooking the skin.
Well, cooking is a strong word, but biologically speaking, you are definitely raising the surface temperature,
Yeah.
which leads to that really uncomfortable, flushed, tight sensation. It's literally a distress signal from your barrier.
Okay, that's actually terrifying. Let's move to warning sign number 3, which I think is really going to hurt some people's wallets, because this is all about our expensive serums.
Ah, yes. The stalled active sign. This is for all the skincare junkies out there who have like a 10-step routine.
Guilty as charged.
You buy an expensive vitamin C serum or a fancy peptide complex, you use it, it works great. Then winter comes, you switch to a much heavier moisturizer, and suddenly...
Serum just stops working.
Exactly. Your glow is just gone.
And naturally, you blame the serum. You think the bottle went bad, or your skin just got used to it or something.
Right. That's the assumption.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the layering. If you are putting a heavy occlusive on top, you are fundamentally changing the environment in which that serum operates.
How so?
Well, more importantly, if you're using that heavy cream before, or even mixed with your active ingredients, or if the residue from the night before is just so heavy it hasn't properly washed off in the morning, you are creating a physical blockade.
It's literally a brick wall blocking the expensive stuff.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
But there is a whole other layer to this chemically. If you create that greenhouse environment we talked about, hot, humid, bacterial, you might actually be altering the pH balance of your skin's surface.
Oh, wow. And pH is crucial for actives, right?
Absolutely. Many actives, especially things like vitamin C or chemical exfoliants, are highly pH dependent. They need a very specific level of acidity to penetrate and work.
Right.
So if your heavy cream is trapping sweat and altering that baseline pH, you are actively chemically neutralizing your expensive products.
So you're spending, what, $80 on a fancy serum and then another $50 on a cream that effectively just cancels out the serum.
It's a very expensive way to get zero results.
Okay, I'm totally sold. I'm literally looking at my imaginary jar of thick night cream with a lot of suspicion right now. But we can't just go barefaced, right? If we stop the occlusion entirely, don't we risk just drying out?
Right. You don't want to do that either.
So what is the exit strategy from the trap?
The exit strategy requires a total paradigm shift. We need to move away from the idea of sealing and move toward true hydrating. The source guidance calls for a humectant-first approach.
Okay, humectant-first. We mentioned humectants earlier, the water magnets. Let's get a bit technical for a second. When you're standing in the aisle, what are we actually looking for on the ingredient label?
The heavy hitters you want to look for are hyaluronic acid, or HA glycerin, panthenol, which is vitamin B5, and beta-glucan. These molecules are inherently water-loving. They don't just sit on top of the skin, they actively bind water to the skin cells.
Yeah.
Hyaluronic acid, famously, can hold up to 1,000 times its own weight in water.
So instead of putting a tight lid on things, you're basically creating a water reservoir inside the skin.
That is the perfect analogy. You're actually filling the sponge with water rather than just wrapping a bone-dry sponge in plastic wrap.
I love that. But practically speaking, what does this look like in an actual routine? Are we just splashing water on our face and calling it a night?
No. You want to apply those watery serums or essences first. That is your skin's drink of water. But then, and this is really where the major texture change happens, instead of reaching for that thick butter or heavy cream, you switch to a gel cream or a light lotion.
Gel creams are having a massive moment right now, aren't they? They just feel so much lighter.
And there is a very good biological reason for that. A gel cream typically uses a much higher water content and relies on lighter silicones or water-soluble emollients.
So it doesn't trap the heat.
Exactly. The source describes the goal here as delivering ingredients without suffocating the pores. You want the product to absorb fully, leaving the skin actually feeling like skin, not like some sticky, tacky surface.
But And I have to play devil's advocate here because I can literally hear my mother yelling at me. If I just use these light, watery things, won't the air just suck the moisture right back out of my face? Like, don't I need some kind of seal?
Your mother is actually absolutely right. You cannot have zero occlusion or you will experience rapid water evaporation.
Right, the TEWL we talked about.
Yes, but you don't need a lead blanket to stop it. You just need a mesh screen. You need what the source material calls a light emollient seal.
A light seal. Okay, name names. If petroleum jelly is the villain of this story, who is the hero?
Squalane is really the gold standard here.
Squalane with an A, right? Not an E.
Yes, squalane with an A.
Ah.
It is a shelf-stable version of squalene with an E, which is actually a natural part of our own skin's oil.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's bioidentical, the skin immediately recognizes it. It provides just enough weight to hold that hydration in, but it is incredibly breathable. It doesn't trap the heat, and it doesn't clog the pores.
Okay, so the ideal routine for someone trying to escape the trap is humectant serum first to grab the water, followed by a gel cream or maybe just a few drops of squalane oil to lightly lock it all in.
Exactly. You get all the bounce, you get the deep hydration, but your skin can still properly thermoregulate. You're not overheating the engine. You are finally giving the skin what it needs without forcing it into submission.
Now, before we get completely canceled by the dry skin community, we definitely have to acknowledge the exceptions here. Because there are people for whom this light and breathable advice would just be a total disaster, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we have to be very careful not to demonize heavy creams entirely. They are tools.
Right.
You wouldn't use a massive sledgehammer to hang a tiny picture frame. But if you actually need to knock down a wall, a sledgehammer is exactly what you need.
I like that. So when do we need the sledgehammer? When is the occlusive trap actually a protective shield?
The source outlines 3 very specific scenarios where you should basically ignore everything we just said and reach straight for the heavy stuff.
Okay.
The first scenario is compromised barriers.
This is the eczema crowd.
Exactly. Eczema, psoriasis, or just extreme chronic dryness. In these cases, the skin's physical structure, the actual brick and mortar of the skin cells, is broken. There are literal cracks in the wall.
Oh, wow.
The skin is physically incapable of holding onto its own water or its own lipids.
So the skin is basically leaking.
It's leaking water out, and it's letting irritants in. So in this specific case, you absolutely need an artificial seal.
Right.
You need that heavy petroleum or shea butter layer to act as a prosthetic barrier because your natural one is failing. Here, the trap is actually a life raft.
That makes perfect sense. You're literally patching the holes in the bucket. Okay, what's scenario number 2?
Scenario number 2 is environmental. Extreme cold or really dry climates.
The walking around Chicago in February scenario.
Precisely. Or sitting in a pressurized airplane cabin. When the humidity drops drastically and the wind picks up, the environment is actively trying to suck every single molecule of water out of your body.
And a gel cream just isn't going to cut it.
The rate of evaporation is so high that a light gel cream will just vanish in minutes.
So if you're skiing or if you're working outdoors in the dead of winter, slime it up.
Slime it up. You absolutely need that physical shield against the wind and the dry air. The risk of trapped heat is incredibly low anyway because the environment is freezing and the critical need for protection far outweighs the risk of occlusion.
Makes sense. And the third scenario?
Active healing. This refers specifically to post-procedure skin. If you just had a heavy laser treatment, a deep chemical peel, or, if you've just gone way too hard with a harsh scrub and your face physically hurt.
When you've scrubbed your face raw. Yeah, we've all definitely been there at 2 a.m.
Right. When the skin is raw, it is in full emergency repair mode. It desperately needs a bandage.
Yeah.
And a heavy occlusive moisturizer acts as a liquid bandage.
Right.
It keeps the wound moist, which actually speeds up the healing process, and it protects it from outside bacteria while the brand new skin forms underneath.
So slug life, that whole viral trend of covering your entire face in Vaseline before bed, it actually does have a place.
It has a very specific place if you are actively healing or if you're incredibly chronically dry. But if you have oily, acne-prone skin and you decide to just slug because you saw some influencer do it on a video.
You are going to wake up with a face full of active volcanoes.
Exactly.
And that really brings us to the ultimate takeaway here. It feels like the main lesson isn't actually about specific ingredients. It's about personalization.
It really is. There is a quote from the source material that I just think is brilliant. Your skin type determines your moisturizer, not the internet.
Not the internet. Man, that is so hard to practice, though. You scroll through your feed and you see someone with perfect glass skin, literally reflective, and they hold up a tub and say, I use this thick goo, and your lizard brain just goes, I need the thick goo.
Of course it does. But you don't know their genetics.
Right.
You don't know if they're on prescription medication that dries them out. You don't know if they live in an arid desert. The internet sells visual trends, but biology dictates reality.
Yeah.
There's immense social pressure to just blindly follow the routine of the moment. But if you have rosacea-prone skin, following the routine of someone with dry, eczema-prone skin isn't just ineffective. It is actively inflammatory to your face.
It's like wearing someone else's strong prescription glasses and then wondering why you suddenly have a massive headache.
That is the perfect analogy. We really have to stop treating skincare like a one-size-fits-all fashion trend and start treating it like the medical reality it actually is.
So let's quickly recap this journey because we've covered a lot of ground today. We started with the absolute dogma, moisturize more.
And we completely debunked it. We learned that for a lot of people, especially those dealing with excess oil, acne, or rosacea-heavy moisturizers. Just create an occlusive trap.
Right. They trap the heat, which leads to inflammation. They trap the sebum, which leads to acne. And they trap the bacteria.
We also learned the 3 diagnostic signs. Do you break out exactly where you put the cream? Does your face feel tight and warm like it's suffocating right after applying? And do your expensive serums just magically stop working?
And thankfully, we found the solution. The humectant-first approach. Hydrate deeply with water-binding ingredients like glycerin and hyaluronic acid, and then seal it all in with breathable textures like gel creams or a little squalane.
Unless, and this is the big safety warning, you have eczema, you are trekking through the Arctic, or you are actively healing a wound, then and only then do you bring out the heavy artillery sledgehammer.
Exactly. Context is king. You have to look at your actual skin, not just the fancy jar.
It really does change the way you look at your bathroom counter, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not about good products versus bad products. It's about physics. It's about biological compatibility.
I love that. So here is a provocative thought to leave you with, something to mull over tonight while you're washing your face. If your skin always feels tight after you moisturize, and you've just been reaching for a thicker and thicker cream to try and fix it, ask yourself this. Have you just been treating a fire by throwing a heavy wool blanket over it?
Yeah. Maybe it's finally time to take the blanket off and just let the skin breathe.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.